I'm talking with today the 2006 Humanitarian of the Year, the 2007 Memorial Cup champion with the Vancouver Giants. He's played over 14 years of professional hockey now. He started his own company. It's Wacey Rabbit. Wacey, how have you been, and what has this pandemic era been like for yourself?
Well, I can say that I've been healthy. My family's been healthy. My girlfriend's been healthy, so we're very grateful for that. But like everybody, I mean, we're just kind of sitting and just waiting. Lucky enough that my season down in Jacksonville has been green lit, so we leave. It's the 18th today, so I'm leaving on the 25th. But I mean, the pandemic, like I said, things change day by day, so I'm just holding my breath for now.
As you get ready to go down to Jacksonville, you've been there. This will be your fourth season with the team, I believe. Are you nervous at all heading down there, or do you feel as safe as you can going back to the Iceman?
Obviously, nerves are going to be part of anything, even if before the beginning of hockey season, you always have your nerves, but everything's so uncertain. I do feel confident that the league and our team have done the best to make sure we're prepared. It's going to be different for sure. But like I've told the players, I mean, just to be able to play hockey this year, it's going to be a privilege. So I'm taking the positive with that. I mean, at the same time, I mean, you just live 24 at a time because that's all you can. And like I said, I'm getting ready to leave, but it is uncertain times, and I do have to drive down, so it'll be kind of an interesting drive down as well.
Yeah, oh my goodness, you're driving down from Edmonton. Oh my, good for you. That's all I'm going to say. It's good for you on that. That's an impressive drive. And it's been an impressive life you've had. Let's turn the page back a little bit here. Let's go back to your Saskatoon days when you started with the Blades. Do you remember what it was like? And first of all, for anybody who's listening, if you want to go check out Wacey's stats from when he was 16 with the Saskatoon Blades, they're pretty phenomenal. 21 goals and over 20 assists for 45 points as a 16-year-old is tremendous. But do you remember what that first season was like for yourself, making that transition as a third-round pick into the Western Hockey League?
Yeah, I think for most kids, I know I've shared a couple stories with the guys that I skate. Their first year junior it's tough because it's your first time away from home. I remember being homesick the first 2 or 3 months, and then adding to that, I wasn't playing very much as in and out of the lineup as expected as a 16-year-old. And then I did finally get my opportunity, and I just ran with it. I remember Kevin Dickey was our head coach, and he had some confidence in me. I started on the second power play unit, and then I worked my way up to the first. But I mean, nothing ever was given. I mean, I was a third-round pick. I wasn't a high pick. I was very undersized. I think I weighed in at 148 pounds that year. I was 5'8", so the cards were stacked against me. But I mean, I always played big. I mean, I was never afraid to go into the corners. I knew my quickness was something that I'd have to rely on, and just thinking fast. But I mean, I was very grateful to play with two great. I mean, Warren Peters is our 20-year-old as a captain. He really took me under his wing, and Ryan Keller, I think at the time, was probably one of the best goal scorers in the league. So it was really easy to play with those players. You just had to make sure that you're prepared every game, every shift, because I mean, there's 18 and 19-year-olds that were ready to take my spot there. So I had to earn it, and thankfully that I did finish the year. Like you said, my stats they showed that.
Yeah, I mean, you had 4 years in Saskatoon. Your 19-year-old season, you were named the captain of the team. And then your 20-year-old year, you started the year in Providence, which was the affiliate team of the Boston Bruins and still is. When you were in Providence, did you think that you were going to be there the entire season, or did you know that there was a possibility that you might be coming back to the Western Hockey League?
No, when you sign your professional contract, you're expected. Like I kind of turned the page. At the time, the American Hockey League, they were only having 10 or 11 forwards being dressed. They didn't have the full four lines. And I was a centerman. So I was playing behind guys like Craig C., Vladimir Sobotka, Nate Thompson. So guys that are like full-time NHLers within a couple of years. So I wasn't a high pick again. So I had to earn my ice time. I remember I was healthy scratched about 7 to 8 times in a row. It was tough. And obviously it is a developmental league. I was young, and they wanted me to make sure I was playing. So I did get sent down to the ECHL. And in that transition to the transaction period, about 24 hours, my agent talked with the Western Hockey League about if I was able to come back, and that my rights would be traded for sure. I wasn't going to come back to Saskatoon. And I remember taking that flight from Boston to Long Beach, which was at the time the Boston's affiliate in the East Coast Hockey League, and when I landed, I I had a lot of missed calls and some voicemails saying that I got traded to Vancouver. So within a 48-hour period, I was a professional hockey league in the American Hockey League, or sorry, a professional hockey player in the American Hockey League, and then I was a Memorial Cup a participant for sure because I was traded to Vancouver, and at that time we had a really good team and we were hosting, so I was excited. And obviously, you want to play professional, but that was kind of it was okay for me to go back to the Western Hockey League and get a chance to win.
And with that team, I mean, for myself, I remember I went to about 10 to 15 Giants home games a year. I remember when they traded for you. I remember being like, oh my goodness, we're actually going to win it this year. But for yourself, walking into that locker room, you're a 20-year-old player. There's some really, really good players on that team. And not only that, they've been together for 3 to 4 years now. I mean, they've had the Fistricks, the Festerlings, the Luciches. Those guys have all been there. Dustin Slade, who you didn't get to meet because he was on his way out by that point. But, was it difficult for you to walk into that dressing room, or was it immediately, hey, you're here to help us win and we're so excited to have you?
No, so like I said, in that transaction period, I was looking at the roster, and I've played against most of the guys, or played with either in summer hockey as a minor hockey or doing Hockey Canada events. But I mean, the leadership core as a 20-year-old, if you're getting traded at the deadline, you're expected that you're going to be a lot will be weighing on your shoulders. But I didn't feel that. I think we had a lot of players that were, when I got there was still quite a few players missing because they were at the World Juniors, or so we had a lot of players, a lot of NHL draft picks. Even our 16-year-olds, they could have been the top players on most other teams. You look at the guys like Lance Boma, Craig Cunningham, James Wright. Those are our 16-year-olds, and they end up having good careers. But I walked into that dressing room. They were, I mean, you fall in line or you stick out like a sore thumb. And Don did a great job preparing us. And I remember my first meeting with him. I walked in. He said, "Well, why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to win." And it was smooth sailing from there. And you just kind of that locker room is very contagious, and they're very, like I said, if you don't fall in line, you stick out because they work hard. They have their traditions, and I mean, I just fit well because I played the same style that they played, so it was a good fit.
Well, I can tell you that those 16-year-olds ended up being the 19-year-olds and the captains when I was 16 on the Giants, and they kept that culture and that tradition right through. There were some tough practices back in those days, but there's 2 games I want to ask you about from that 20-year-old year. The first, Game 7, WHL Championship, Medicine Hat, one of the most famous Game 7s in the history of the Western Hockey League Championship, and then the Memorial Cup final, essentially the revenge game for you guys. What was it like playing in that Game 7? And then what was the feeling before the Memorial Cup final, playing Medicine Hat for that last time?
Well, the Game 7, I've been asked about that a lot lately. Just thinking back on it now, you talk about pressure situations. We were going into Medicine Hat up 3-2. So we had our chance to finish it in Game 6, and we didn't in Game 7. I mean, it's a toss-up. The best, if you have an off night, you're done. But I mean, both teams played amazing. We went to double overtime. I remember the build-up before the game. I remember doing my dynamic warm-up outside. It was nice because it was May, so you could warm up outside. And it was like 4:30, almost 5 o'clock, and the parking lot was already packed. They were having the pregame celebrations, and all the fans were into it. But once we hit the ice, it was intense. From the goalies to the defensemen, forwards on both sides, that everybody brought their A game. It was back and forth, and adding to that of obviously the intense game is that the fog kept coming down because there's so many people. So we'd have to go out and skate around to help lift up the fog from the ice, and that just added to it. So I remember I scored that game. I don't remember who tied it up to bring it into overtime. I just remember in overtime that it was going back and forth, and it was so fun. It was so intense that was probably the best hockey I played in my career, and that's including the American Hockey League and international play. You look at the teams. I mean, the players on both teams. The whole roster went on to either play well in the CIS or in professional sports, but unfortunately we didn't win, and that was heartbreaking. But we didn't have time to kind of lick our wounds. We were within 4 or 5 days we were hosting, and that Memorial Cup, it was an up and down because you're so high, and obviously you don't go in, you feel like you deserve to be there, but we wanted to prove that, we didn't go through the front door, we went through the screen door. That's what we would say. because I mean, we had every right to be there. We were one of the best teams in Canada all year, especially in the CHL, and then obviously in the Western Hockey League. We could have, I mean, one bounce, we were Western Hockey League champions away. But to finally to get to that rematch in our building, sold out against that team, the Tigers, and it was meant to be. I remember the last 3 seconds or the last 30 seconds I was out there for the shift, and you knew you're going to win. And I love watching teams, especially like in professional sports, when they know they're going to win the countdown. And I've always wanted to be a part of that. And I just get chills down my spine thinking about it, because I was on the ice and I rifled my stick about 70 feet in the air. Thankfully, it didn't come down and kill anybody, but just the celebration. And I was only there from January to May, but I mean, I still talk to those guys like I was there for 10 years, you know, like as a part of it. And I still talk to Craig Cunningham, and I was teammates with Garrett Hunt. So when you do win, you build those relationships, and they're for life, because like you don't get to win very often, and to win a major championship like that in your city, and the celebration in front of your fans, your family, the scouting staff, the brass, everyone that was a part of it, you just make sure that you soak that in, because it only happens once in a lifetime. I mean, you might be able to win 2 or 3 times, but on that level, it's something special, and I'll always be able to take that with me throughout the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to talk about a special time in the Western Hockey League and junior hockey. That's that Memorial Cup, that playoffs is just such a special time, and it's nostalgic now for us to look back on. And you talk about winning. You're in this transition phase now where you have played 14 years of professional hockey. You're now moving. You're going to go back down to Jacksonville to the ECHL. You might play a couple more years, but you're preparing for life after hockey. And you've just been named the Indigenous Sports Council of Alberta's ambassador for sport for hockey. So now you're transitioning that winning to helping the youth in Alberta win. So what does that role entail, and what are you hoping to accomplish with it?
Well, with ISCA, I think especially with this time of what's going on in the climate in the world, I want to make sure that our youth know they have a place in this sport, whether it's in hockey, academics, anything in this world, that they deserve every opportunity if they work hard and they chase their dreams. And I think that if they see that in myself, I mean, I never played in the NHL, but you look at how many Indigenous athletes have gone on to play in the NHL, and Ethan Bear with Seattle, Michael Furland with the Canucks now. They chased their dreams. They had to leave some opportunities, some situations where they didn't want them. Obviously, leaving the reserve for myself was one of the biggest things, that not only for myself but my family. So I want to make sure that these kids know that there is a place for them. And after the transitioning to hockey, I never played in the NHL, but the game has given me so much. My life experience just from the game has been amazing. I've traveled and lived in some amazing places. Very grateful and very lucky to meet some of the people that I have, whether it was with hockey or just in my travels. So I want to make sure now it's my time to give back to the game, and that's kind of what my program's doing. I'm want to graduate into skill development or the development side of hockey, whether it was coaching or just individual skill stuff. So I've been taught by some of the best skills coaches in the world, whether it's Paul Vincent or Adam Redmond, that now I can start giving back to those guys. And there's some Western Hockey League guys in my group here in Edmonton. But for my schools, it's kind of, for right now, because of COVID, I can only do First Nations. They have to bring me in under strict guidelines. But I wanted to make sure that even if it was for an hour, these kids can be kids, especially in this climate with COVID, that they need to just, for mental health and just physical health, and just let them be kids, because hockey's fun at the end of the day. You don't start the game to be Sidney Crosby and like your parents. Hockey's there to be for life skills. It's to get out and be athletic, and to learn to put others ahead of yourself, and to work in a team atmosphere. I think that's most important. I want these kids to know that it's important to obviously have goals too, but to have fun is the most important, because hockey's a great game.
It's a lot of fun when you win, and it's a lot better when you win a Memorial Cup, I'm sure. But I mean, that answer you just gave, it's not surprising that in 2006 you were also the Humanitarian of the Year for the Western Hockey League. Can you remember any of the initiatives that you were a part in, or you took the lead on for the Blades when you won that award?
Well, I have to give all the credit to our staff there. Mr. Sissons, who's in PA now, I believe, he was one of the big parts because obviously Saskatoon has a big Indigenous population, and I was named captain there, so I wanted to make sure that it was going to give back to my community. But it started when I was 16. I always talk about Jack Browski, who was the owner at the time. I always remember as a draft pick, they bring you in your first experience, and one of the first things that resonated with me was that we may be hockey players and maybe Saskatoon Blades, but we're citizens of the Saskatoon community first, and that resonated with me. So I always wanted to make sure that when I was there, that people seeing that, I'll come speak to schools. I want to be a part of the kids' practices or whatever it is. I always made sure I said yes. But once I kind of got more notoriety, and obviously being in Saskatoon for 3 or 4 years at the time, that I could go to schools, and I wanted to do something a little bit bigger. So I wanted to make sure we included the Indigenous population in Saskatoon Tribal Council, all the reserves outside Saskatoon. I wanted to visit. So they did a great job of hooking that up, whether it was we went to go to a reading or just play like hockey with the kids. And we had the initiative where we would select 30 kids from these communities to come into Saskatoon and watch a practice or a game, and then we'd have a pizza party. I remember we had the firefighters rappelling from the ropes. We had the canine unit come down. So it was something that you had to. It was like in the schools that we go to, they had to have good attendance, good participation, and then grades and all that. But I wanted to make sure that they did get to come experience the Western Hockey League, and that they knew that they could identify with me because I come from the same. I mean, I may be from Alberta, but I come from the same community that they come from, and that if they want to chase that dream of being a Western Hockey League player or a professional, or like I said, in academics or being a doctor or lawyer, that there is room for everybody.
Essentially, you're telling kids you can do anything you want in life. Don't worry about what other people tell you are, because it's up to you to decide and go after what you want to be in life. And we've been talking a lot about, your upbringing. Yeah, you're obviously the First Nations. Have you experienced discrimination in hockey? And if you have, how difficult is it to deal with? And what can other people, especially from me, like, I'm about as white as you come, as you can see through the TV, through the camera here. I mean, I'm reflecting the light. What can we do to be better teammates, better people when we see that happening in hockey?
Yeah, well, I'll answer your first question. I mean, I've had experiences in grade 2 with racism in the sport. Unfortunately, yes, for sure. But I was always taught from a young age, especially from my grandparents, to be proud of who I am and where I come from, and I've always brought that with me. And for the other side is that the other side of the coin. I mean, it's all about education. In Canada, we have a very, very dark history. Once we know where everybody's story and everybody comes from, we can start to understand each other better. At the end of the day, hockey is a sport. It's meant to bring the communities together. Whether you're an immigrant of 5 years coming into Canada, or your history of myself, that we've been here at the beginning of time, or your family that maybe immigrated in 1800s or so, but we're all Canadians. We all end up wanting to play hockey and cheering on hockey, and that's what it's supposed to be. Sport is supposed to bring communities together, and if one select group of people don't feel a part of it, then that's not the meaning of sport. And that at the end of the day, it's how you treat people in your relationships with those people, whether it doesn't matter about your skin color. And I think at the end of the day, that's most important.
Yeah. And it's something that's, for some people, it takes time to understand that we're all in this together, and, building relationships is going to go so much further in the long run than judging somebody off of, a perceived characteristic. But that brings me to my next question. You've, again, 14 seasons of professional hockey. When you look back at your 20-year-old season with the Vancouver Giants, you throwing your stick up to the rafters, to right now, what do you think has been your biggest area of growth as a person?
I think most important, I wanted to make sure with my growth, obviously being the on ice is one thing, but being a good teammate is most important for me. I mean, you only play for 15 years. I mean, the average career goes from 5 to 7. I was lucky enough to play 14 years, but I wanted to make sure on every team that I had relationships with every guy, whether you were a backup goalie or a fourth liner, that I wanted to make sure that you felt important on the team. And I always felt that would bring teams together, and I guess even make myself a better player and a better person. With the actual game part, I mean, I always feel like I'm always learning, I'm not the biggest guy, so I need to keep improving my game. And I felt that's what helped me just kind of walk into any dressing room around the world, literally to fit in, So I played in Japan, I played in Italy, and now I'm back on the East Coast, and I'm trying to kick it with the young guys, but I'm always trying to get better in the summertime. And that was the most important thing I felt, is being a good teammate, being a good person, and always making sure that you're getting better in your off time when you're not at the rink.
When you're talking about around the world, you aren't kidding. You've played in the United States and several different teams. You've played in Croatia, Norway, Japan, Italy, the Czech Republic, and Romania. I mean, that is such a cool experience that you've got to have, that you've got to experience. Out of those places, which has been the one stop that you've gone to that has really, you didn't have any expectations of it being a great place to go, or you were kind of like, well, the opportunity to play hockey is great, but then once you got there, you really fell in love with the city or fell in love with the country?
My number one was Norway. I spent 3 years there. That was kind of my stop of where, after the American Hockey League, I kind of knew my dream of making the NHL was kind of over. So I wanted to use, obviously, hockey as a way to make ends meet, but for myself is to use it as a vehicle to travel the world, to see some things while playing hockey. And I didn't have a lot of expectations, because Norway's in Scandinavia is not the hockey hotbed. You're thinking of Finland and Sweden as like the hockey hotbeds. But once I got there, we lived right downtown. Oslo is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. They treated us unbelievable. And my first stop in Zagreb, Croatia, was my first stop in Europe. It was 2 years prior to that, and it wasn't a very good experience. Just away from the ice, just from not being paid and stuff. But the professionalism in Norway, and then being able to go out in the city, and everybody speaks perfect English, so it just kind of made that transition. And I spent 3 years there. I only signed a 1-year contract, and they wanted me to sign. I ended up signing 2 more years, and I'll always remember my time with Lawrence Skog. And the hockey players there are amazing. Like, they're not far off from being a hockey. I mean, they have a small country, but they're very passionate about their winter sports.
Well, it might be an opportunity for you to take your new business venture. I don't want to get this wrong, but it's WR20, Wacey Rabbit 20, which is obviously your initials and then your jersey number. When you started this skills development company, what's your goal, and what do you think you can provide to the young kids? And some of them aren't young, because I know you have several of our Western Hockey League players that are coming to your camps and coming to your hockey schools.
Yeah, I think number one is I want to make sure that these kids are getting trained properly. Hockey is such a high collision, high impact sport where they need to be good on their edges. You look at the game, it's so fast now. So when you're going to those areas that, one, you're comfortable enough on your edges to elude checks, to elude contact with the puck or without it, and you're doing it with your head up. So I mean, a lot of these times is that with these, like, I'm fully dressed with these kids because I'm still getting my reps. So I may screw up, but I always say that where you make mistakes is that's where you grow the most. So getting out of your comfort zone, and I don't use the toys. I use a lot of stuff. So it is game-like situation, but being a good skater, and if you can think at a high level, then you'll have a good chance of making it to the NHL. And I just want to make sure these kids are prepared. Just some of the stuff that I've learned. Like I said, I've been under some of the best skills coaches in the world. Paul Vincent, he worked with the Bruins when we were with us, and I think he's with the Panthers now. And Ad Redmond worked with Hockey Canada for years in Calgary there. So I just kind of take some of every stuff from everything and then add it to my own. So right now I'm trying to grow that. I mean, in Edmonton, it's such a hockey hotbed for players. And right now, COVID, it kind of fell into my lap because everyone's looking for ice, and it kind of took off. And it's something that I've always been passionate about. Even before I started, I always made sure I worked with the younger guys everywhere I went, because at the end of the day, you grow the game, it'll give back, and that's most important.
Well, Wacey, it's been a real privilege getting to talk to you today. All the best of luck on your drive down to Jacksonville, and once the season actually gets going, I hope that everything is A-okay, so that you get the full season in, and then you're able to come back after and keep growing your business, your hockey camps, and keep making an impact in Alberta here.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on.